Hello, buenas noches. Um, I am trying something different this time. So, can y'all tell me if you can hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me, because I'm not sure that I set this up properly. Hey, Tony, can you hear me? Can y'all hear me? Hello? Can somebody let me know in the chat if you can hear me? Or no, you can't. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Today, after much bullying and nudging from Rashida of Sheeta's on the Loose, we are going, or I am going to share with you what I know about getting medical insurance here in Mexico City. If you are new and you're here, or if you're watching this on the replay, I am Adelia Aborashade, also known as Picky Girl Travels the World. I help Black women live the life of their dreams by first getting a handle on their money. On this channel, we talk about finances, we talk about travel, we talk about moving abroad. So if any of those are of interest to you, please subscribe. Uh, that way you'll see my new videos when they come out. Thank y'all for joining me this evening. uh, I know we normally go live earlier in the day, but I couldn't get myself together earlier in the day, so here we are now. Okay, let me pull up my notes. Uh, and we're doing this live. So if you've got questions, be sure to drop those in the chat. And even if you're watching this on the replay, you can leave your questions and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Is it Tarita? Is this a time that works better for y'all? This time of day? Okay. So we'll kind of start with kind of my thinking and how this all came to be. I have been living outside the US for a total of 5 years. Some of those years I was employed with a traditional 9 to 5, and I had health insurance through the foreign entity that I worked for. When I was in Honduras, I did use some of my health benefits. When I lived in China, even though I had insurance, there was no way in hell I was going to a Chinese hospital if I could help it, because I had a really disconcerting experience when I first arrived there that told me that the level of hygiene I expected in a medical setting was not necessarily what I was going to get in China. So I never used my insurance benefits there. I think I did use them in when I lived in Kuwait. But I knew last year in 2020 that I would be returning to Mexico. And I knew I'd be here long term. So I knew I needed to solve my healthcare situation, because in a lot of places like the US, if you don't have health insurance through your employer, unless you're in like a Western European country that has true universal health care, you got to figure out something for yourself. So I knew I was going to have to figure out some insurance. Now, you've got a couple of options. Depending how long you are going to be in a country, it might make sense to have well, I don't like to say travel insurance because I think that's sort of a misnomer or people misunderstand it. When you are buying a ticket online or you get prompted to get the insurance, that's that travel insurance is really about the trip. It's about delays, lost baggage, stuff like that. It might include some medical stuff, but unless you specifically look for that, unless you are specifically shopping for that, it probably won't. So if you're going to be in Mexico, let's say a month or two, less than 6 months, like you're coming here on a tourist visa, you can get away with travel health insurance. There are a lot of companies that do that. One that is really popular with digital nomads is Safety Wing, because you can pay for coverage monthly as you need it. You can have it reoccurring, and they do actually offer you can get that coverage while you're out traveling. You don't have to sign up for Safety Wing before you leave your home country. And with Safety Wing, they do give you coverage in your home country. If you've been out for 90 days and you go back to visit, in most countries, they will give you up to 30 days of coverage. If your home country is the United States, they only give you 15 days. And we all can guess why. It's because medical care is so expensive in the US. So for me, travel insurance, travel health insurance was not really going to solve my problem because I already had my residency in Mexico. I knew I was going to be here long term. So that meant my options were the public health system here in Mexico, local private health insurance, or what a lot of people call like global health insurance, expat health insurance, international health insurance. So those were really my three choices. Pre-COVID, my plan had been to get on the public health system here. In Mexico, there are two. There is IMSS, which is IMSS. It stands for Instituto Mexicano de Seguro Social. So basically, Social Security. Any Mexican employer has to pay into that. If you work for them, you have to get it. Now you can opt and get your own private insurance on the side, but there's employers subsidizing that program. I think there is some government payment in there too. But if you are a resident of Mexico, like me, I'm not working here in Mexico, I can pay to opt into IMSS for about $400 a year. For somebody my age, I'm 46. Let's say you move to Mexico and you are 70. You can join IMSS, I think, for about 5 or 6,000. No, I'm doing the math wrong. About 5 or 600 USD per year, which if you compare that to what insurance would cost you in the United States, it's a bargain. But I opted not to go with IMSS primarily because of the pandemic. There's some other issues with doing IMSS that a lot of people find it. Well, think about it. It's a public system. And we all know that public systems don't tend to be the most efficient, that sort of thing. So, if you can't get other insurance, it's not a bad option. I was considering it because of the cost. I don't have any pre-existing health conditions. There is a list of pre-existing health conditions that IMSS will not cover. I don't know all of them, but it includes things like malignant tumor, late stages of diabetes, mellitus, I don't know what that is, chronic liver disease, chronic kidney failure, vascular heart disease, and there's more to that list, but that gives you some idea of the pre-existing conditions that IMSS won't cover. But for me, I opted not to go with IMSS because of the pandemic. One, I didn't want to be in crowded hospitals with a bunch of sick people during a pandemic. And two, the pandemic crushed the public health system here. There really is no other way to say it. They were beyond overwhelmed. It virtually collapsed. So, and I could see that before I left China. I left China in July of 2020, a year ago Friday. Today is Sunday. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do M's, and not because if I got sick, I wanted to have a reasonable assumption that I could get care. So that meant I needed to either get international or expat health insurance, or I was going to have to go with a local Mexican insurance company. Um, there is another public system. So we've got M's, that's kind of the big one. And then there's one like if you have a pre-existing health condition and you can't get M's, or like so many people in Mexico, let's say they're self-employed or they work in an informal job. Um, how do they get access to healthcare? Because the Mexican Constitution actually declares that healthcare is a right, that everybody is supposed to have access to it. They have another system. It used to be called Seguro Popular. They changed the name in January 2020. It's called INSABI, INSABI, Instituto de Salud para el Bienestar, basically health and welfare, the Institute of Health and Welfare. This is like, nobody wants to depend on INSABI for their primary medical care. This is if you don't have anything else, but you do need to see a doctor, that's an option. There is no sign up. It is not free, but it costs so little, it might as well be free. But if you were to use INSABI, like you can't be hospitalized without having somebody with you because they don't cover nurses to give you a bath, change your sheets, get you food. That's not included. So this is like bare minimum. Needless to say, that was never an option for me. I told y'all I opted out of M's because the public system was just taxed beyond all belief because of the pandemic. So I started to price international healthcare. Now, in my situation, I don't go to the US very often. I really would rather not be treated for health issues in the US because I don't have American health insurance and it costs so much, it would take all of my money. I have left instructions with my family members that if something happens to me, when I'm out traveling or whatever, do not bring me back to the US for healthcare because I don't want to use my life savings to pay for a medical emergency. So that impacted the different policies that I looked at. You can get an international health care policy that covers the United States, but that's going to cost you more. Now Health would be a good company to look at. There's another video on my channel called What to Do If You Get Sick Abroad, Handling Medical Emergencies Abroad, where I talked to 3 different women about, what happened to them and, medical situations in different countries. And one of the women I talked to was in South Africa and got COVID, and she used Now Health. And let's just say she didn't have to come out of pocket for thousands of dollars that she would have had to have done to get the kind of care she did. So the international health insurance policies tended to be more. And when I say more, for somebody like me with no pre-existing health issues, was probably looking at about $3,000 a year. And that some of those would have included preventative care, some of them would not have. The more you want a policy that's going to include preventative care, that's going to cost you extra. I knew this was true about insurance companies in Latin America, but I am starting to get the feeling that this may be true outside of Latin America, that insurance is often seen kind of as like for accidents and catastrophic illness, not for day-to-day medical things. But that I know that's kind of the truth here in Latin America. And I'm getting the impression it's like that in the rest of the world too. Okay, so um, I didn't want to spend that kind of money if I didn't have to, because odds are I wasn't going to use the policy. So that then led me to do some pricing with local private insurance companies in Mexico. And I saw a question over here in the chat. M says, do you need to be a temp or permanent resident in order to qualify for insurance? Yes. If you want to get local private health care, you will need to have residency. Um, because not only when you become a resident in Mexico, you get a corp, which is kind of like sort of like a social security number, but it's not used for taxes. It's kind of like a national ID number. But I also, because I'm looking at the application that I had to fill in, I also had to get an RFC, which is a tax ID number. So if you are in Mexico, but you are not a resident, temporary or permanent, um, a global policy will probably be your best bet. Because I went through an agent because my Spanish is not good enough to do this on my own. And these were things that she was prompting me about and saying, you know, you need to have this, you need to have that. So, yeah. Another reason that I opted to do private local health insurance as opposed to, let's say, IMSS, the state system, is because in the state system, you don't really get to choose your doctors. And I wanted to have that choice just in case. Um, I could have gotten something like Safety Wing that a lot of digital nomads use. I could have gotten that. The primary, because it would have been very easy. Literally, I go to their website, I sign up, I answer a few questions, and boom, I got coverage. One of the reasons I didn't was because Safety Wing's like max coverage amount was 250,000 US. And I wanted a policy that covered more than that, just in case. So, how did I get my Mexican health insurance, and what was my process? Um, I reached out to people I knew here. Rashida has mentioned that I told her she needed to join the moms group when she got here. And so in a group like that, you put up a post and you say, I'm, looking for insurance. And either some of the moms are insurance agents or they can give you a connection to one. So I reached out to some insurance agents. Now, mind you, I'm doing all of this in the middle of the pandemic. Getting here in July last year, Mexico City was just coming off of red, because we have a stoplight system here, and red is the worst. Then it's orange, then it's yellow, then it's green. We are going to orange tomorrow, so that gives you some idea of what COVID is doing here right now. And so, ever pressing in the back of my mind is, I don't know what COVID's going to do. The last thing I want is to get COVID and not be able to get treatment. That was really my motivating concern, why I want to hurry up and get coverage as soon as I could. So I reached out to some different agents, and I got quotes. They asked what kind of policy I wanted. Here in Mexico, the kind of policy you get is going to be tied to the level of hospital you want. So if you want access to some of the best hospitals, those policies will cost a little bit more, not a catastrophic amount of money. I talked to agents who carry or worked with the big insurance companies here. If I had been in the US, I might have been willing to get a policy from, let's say, not a very well-known, not one of the big names like, and now I can't think of any of the big names, like a State Farm or something like that. I might have been willing to go smaller. But because I don't speak Spanish at the level I want to, I figured One, if it was a bigger company, there's going to be somebody who works there that speaks English, or the likelihood that I could get somebody if I needed that spoke English, uh, that would be there. And I wanted, I don't know, I just didn't feel like gambling on a smaller company. That is one advantage to getting international healthcare, like a global policy is, or an expat insurance. They're used to dealing with people who speak English. So that's like one of their selling things, that the whole claims process, all of that stuff is in English. By opting to get a local policy, primarily stuff is going to be done in Spanish. However, my agent speaks English. And so if I need to, I plan to use her as much as I can to sort of run interference and sort things out for me. And so some of the big companies here in Mexico, here, I'll paste these into the chat for y'all. GNP Seguros is a big company. Seguros Sura, which used to be known, or outside of Latin America is known as Royal and Sun Alliance. MetLife is here. And then Seguros Monterrey. That's who I ended up getting a policy with. Now, I don't have a primary care doctor. I don't have a relationship with a doctor. If I already did have a doctor, I would have probably tried to get insurance that included a hospital that that doctor worked at. But because I so rarely go to the doctor, I don't have a doctor, and I don't really care. I'm not choicy that much about it. So my policy, okay, when she gave me the quote, based off of what I told her, she gave me two separate quotes. One of them uh, was called, it's really based, the structure was different. One of them had two levels of hospitals, Integro and Practico. And it was depending how much I wanted my deductible to be. I got the option of a 25,000 peso deductible. So that's like $1,020, 30,000 up to 35. And then depending if I picked the lower level of hospitals or the higher level, how much it would be. Basically, it came to, because you can pay monthly, quarterly, biannually, or annually. I opted to pay annually because I don't believe in paying like interest and paying for things. Like I got, my policy ended up being, let me see, I'm looking at the thing right now. I got the middle deductible, 30,000 pesos. I would have to pay out of pocket first. My annual policy cost 25,000 pesos, which was about $1,200. The other policy I didn't go with, it was more complicated. There was a deductible, there was a copay, there was co-insurance, and they had 4 levels of hospitals. And depending on whether my stay was short or longer, I would have to pay. It was too much math. To be honest with y'all, it was too much math. So I went with the more simplified policy according to the thing in front of me. I get in-network hospitals. I opted for Practico, which was the higher one. And why did I choose that? This is what I did. I have a friend here who is married to a Mexican. And I asked, she lives fairly close to me. I asked, well, what hospital do you have? Her husband chose this specific hospital because he knew there were people on staff who spoke English. So to me, that sounded like that needed to be my hospital as well. And so the agent sent me a list of what were the hospitals under the Integro plan and which were the hospitals under Practico. I found my friend's hospital and I was like, okay, that's the one I'll pick. I also get 5-year protection, 5-year free protection in case of permanent disability. Not exactly sure what that is or how I prove it. I get a little bit of dental coverage, two cleanings a year, and simple fillings and x rays. I get medical assistance. Not sure what that is. When I asked, I think it was stuff about like um, ambulances and a few other things. They will waive my deductible if I am in an accident and I am hospitalized because of that accident. And then my policy does include some emergency coverage outside of Mexico, and it does include the United States. So for me, $1,200 a year. I might have to come out of pocket $1,200 if I was hospitalized. Because again, my primary concern at the time when I got this policy was COVID. And I mentioned that to y'all because to give you some idea, in January of 2021, the hospitals here were over in Mexico City were over 90% full, and no public hospitals were accepting people. So if you had money and you thought, okay, well, that's fine, I'll go to a private hospital. The private hospitals, they put out a list that showed all of the private hospitals that were full. And they basically said, we will review on a case by case basis whether we will accept you. But you need, now, depending on the hospital, you needed to have somewhere between 300,000 pesos and 1 million pesos, basically 15,000 to 50,000 USD cash up front for them to treat you. If you didn't have that, you couldn't get in the hospital. So, I'm not trying, I'm not trying to get these people all my money. So it was very important to me that I had a policy that covered COVID. My policy did. There was a 30-day waiting period for COVID. And that waiting periods, that's something that was new to me getting insurance in Latin America, because I experienced this when I was in Honduras and here in Mexico. Um, Unlike in the US, I feel like when I had healthcare in the US, my policies covered me instantly from the day of effectiveness and on. Here in Mexico, there are waiting periods, like for COVID. I couldn't catch COVID for 30 days or they wouldn't cover it. If you want to have a baby, there is a waiting period before they will cover you for pregnancy. It's like usually 1 to 2 years. There's a waiting period for cancer, for a few other things too. That was new to me. Um, I mentioned that preventative care is not assumed to be included in your insurance policy. So my policy has very, very little preventative care included. So in this next month, I'm going to go and I'm going to get like all the tests run that you're supposed to get when you're in your mid 40s. But I don't think that's going to be covered by my insurance. I think I'm going to pay for that out of pocket. I don't expect that to cost me more than a couple of $100, but I'll let y'all know how much that runs. Something else to know about insurance here: pre-existing conditions. They are really funny acting about pre-existing conditions. You can get a policy that will cover your specific pre-existing condition, possibly. It depends. It's going to vary depending on the company that you use. It's going to vary on the pre-existing condition. Again, this might be one of those times where it makes more sense to get a global health insurance policy. They're still going to charge you extra if you have a pre-existing condition, but they may be more willing to underwrite it than a local Mexican policy. Okay, so that's kind of how I ended up with insurance. What questions do y'all have? Anybody? I have not had to use my policy. I did not get COVID. I have not had an emergency of any sort. One of the headaches of getting my policy underwritten during COVID, I couldn't get an insurance card. What I have instead is there's a Seguros Monterey app that that's what I have to show that I have proof of coverage. Yeah. No, like a well woman, that sort of thing. You pay for that out of pocket, but like I said, I'm not expecting it to cost me that much money. Um, there's a question, what are some of the best global policies specifically for Mexico? I don't know that a global policy will be specific for Mexico. One of the reasons I opted for me to go with Mexican private health insurance is because for this year, I knew I was not going to be traveling internationally because I told y'all I got stuck in China where I did not want to be. I did not want a repeat of that. So I have been keeping it very close to home. I went to the United States a couple times and got back home to Mexico as fast as possible. So a global policy is going to cover you it'll be very blanket. Basically, it'll cover you everywhere in the world except the US because the US is expensive, or you pay a higher premium and they will give you coverage in the US as well. Um, like I said, I was very impressed with Now Health based on what I was told by Keena Williams through her experience using them when she got COVID in South Africa. I believe she was hospitalized for something like 18 days. Um, there are some big names. Oh, Vumi, VUMI. That it's an agency, but they sort of specialize in expat insurance in Mexico. And they have, I think because they cater to Americans and Canadians, they seem to have a lot of different levels, different add-ons to sort of, so you can kind of recreate the sort of policy you had in the US. Now, there are big names that are here as well, Cigna, Aetna, those people. And those policies just cost more. Do you know if the insurance companies are localized or national? It depends. My specific policy with Seguro Monterrey will cover me throughout Mexico. There are some that will cover you in a specific region, like I don't have it now, but I'll put it in the description. Hippie in Heels. If you Google healthcare, Mexican health insurance, Hippie in Heels wrote a blog post about it, but they were located in like Cancun or somewhere. And so their policy was specific to the Yucatan region. But my policy is all over Mexico. IMG Global, Cigna. Yeah. So like there are big names here. I was motivated by cost and how quickly I could get coverage. And I felt like maybe by having local health insurance, there might be less hoops to jump through because they would be like, oh yeah, we know Seguros Monterrey. I will decide after a year whether this is something I want to continue, or, if I have to file a claim and I find that it is too much of a pain in the ass to do that with my Spanish, I may then opt to go and get an expat policy, somebody who will have things in English. We'll see. This was kind of an experiment. Do you get any type of insurance when you travel to the US? Usually in the US, I am crossing my fingers and hoping nothing happens to me because I'm not giving those people my money. I really am not. So no, I have not had coverage. I did discover that one way that folks who travel a lot, like who are digital nomads or outside the US a lot do is they apply for Medicaid. And then Medicaid can cover them when the few times they are back in the US. I just personally, I try to avoid being in the US. I do not visit for long periods of time. And I'm but like I said, with my current policy, so when I went back in March, technically, if there had been some kind of emergency, in theory, I could have gone to the hospital and used my Seguros Monterey, whatever my little limited benefits were. One thing I will tell you, when I had private health insurance in Honduras and this one, the amount of money they give you is not going to go very far in the United States. I mean, we're not surprised by that. Let's see. International, I need to research if they cover medical health issues, therapy, psychiatry. And you may also find that those services, paying out of pocket for them or paying directly to the doctor, you might come out ahead. That's kind of what I'm feeling. Like when I looked at, because when I was looking at global expat insurance, international insurance, and I compared the prices of policies that included things like preventative care, the excess I would have to pay for that, I felt was way more than if I just went in, if here in Mexico, if I just went in and paid out of pocket, that it would be much cheaper. Yes, that's another thing. Prescriptions, medications. If there are specific medications you need, find out the names that they're sold under here in Mexico. Find that out first, and then you can find out whether you even need a prescription for them. Because like birth control pills are over the counter here. I got a tattoo yesterday and needed to get the ointment for it and didn't want to go to the store. So I had it delivered and I was trying to, not make the delivery person go for just one thing. So I'm looking through, like, what else can I get? I don't know all of the names that are used here for different medications. And so it suggested some things and I clicked on it. Then I Googled it and I was like, oh, those are birth control pills. You mean I could just buy some on this shopping app on my phone and they would deliver them? So yeah, I don't take any medication. So that hasn't been an issue for me. But if you do need specific medication, find out what names it's marketed under here, and then find out if it is even if you have to have a prescription, because you may not need a prescription. That's quite possible. Do y'all have any other questions? Let me see, make sure I covered everything that I wanted to share with y'all. I think I did. I don't know. You don't have any more questions? Did I answer your questions? What was the app? I could see if the medication could be delivered. Basically any delivery app here, because most grocery stores have a pharmacy section in them. And all of the grocery stores, you can order directly from their website to be delivered to you, or you can use an app like Rappi, Rappi. Uber Eats will deliver groceries, but Rappi has specific pharmacies listed. Corner Shop is another app that will let you do that as well. I tend to prefer to order things from Corner Shop as opposed to ordering directly from the store, because when they can't find what you want, when I order directly from the store, they call me and then I have to speak to them in Spanish and try and understand what they're saying and try and communicate what I want. Whereas on Corner Shop, you get a little notification that tells you this thing you want isn't available. Here are some suggestions. And then I can just pick from the suggestions, or I can tell them I don't want it. But you can order. So the same thing is true with pharmacies. The pharmacies have websites and delivery, or you can use something like Rappi or Corner Shop. But it is my understanding that only, oh, what is the term? Only like really, really, they're not narcotics. I can't think of the right terminology, but only like heavy duty drugs are for prescription. Pretty much everything else, I think you can get over the counter. Uh, with my insurance, you have to pay the hospital and then file a claim. It depends. The hospital is not going to file a claim for you, but if it is an emergency or there's an accident and I go, this is the way I understand it. I haven't put this into practice yet. And I go to one of the in-network in hospitals, when I show them my Seguros Monterrey card, they will charge me whatever they need to charge me up to the amount of my deductible. Outside of that, Seguros Monterrey steps in. Um, with with that is something to ask. You're more likely, I think, to get direct payment if you use a international health insurance, like a global policy, expat policy. And one of the things, if you're doing any kind of medical stuff here in Mexico, anything that you might need to be reimbursed for, you need to ask for a factura. That is like the only official proof of payment. So when you buy something online, when you go into a store, they will often ask, "Do you need a factura?" If you've got to submit proof of payment to be reimbursed, but you have like a register receipt, or you have something they had you sign, that will not be good enough. You will need to submit an official factura, and there is often a limit on how long you have to request a factura after the fact. But I believe with my insurance, as long as I'm going someplace in network, um, I just have to pay up to my deductible, or if it's less than that, I just pay that amount, and that's it. Um, that they will sort it out with Seguros Monterrey. That's the way I understand it. Prescription eyeglasses are probably not going to be covered, but in comparison to the US, they are very affordable here, very easy. Same thing with like getting contacts. You just go into the place and you tell them what you need and they give it to you, and it does not cost near what it costs in the US. Naturopathic medicine, is it popular in Mexico? Yes, it is. There are, I'm probably going to get the name wrong, but I think there's a homeopathic pharmacy. Does that sound right? Is that a thing? Um, Not too far from, and they're like many throughout the city. So it is not, it is popular, it is widespread here. Um, it is just, I think it's just as acceptable if you say, hey, I want to do XYZ treatment, or this is what I'm doing, versus a more traditional treatment. Um, let's see. Okay. Joan Hardy is in the comments. Y'all need to watch the video, and I'll see if I can pull up a link to it. Of the other video, Joan was one of the women that I interviewed about their experience with handling emergencies abroad. And Joan was insured with GMP Seguros. She says the agent came to the hospital, registered me, so helpful. And in all honesty, that's exactly, I would be calling my agent, because she speaks English and Spanish. I don't know that I would be trying to handle that on my own. Uh, Let's see. Curious if you know, maybe this is unrelated. How many months of the year do you have to reside outside the US to not be required to have insurance company? As far as I know, they have removed the penalty for no coverage. As far as I know, that you no longer get dinged if you don't have coverage. I have been filing my taxes and I have not had coverage in the US, and they're like, okay, whatever. Nobody, I don't think they ding you anymore for that. I'm trying to find the link to that video so y'all can see it. Um, Lots of great information shared. Okay, here is the link. It is already in the description of this video. Here is the link where this is handling medical emergencies abroad. Y'all can watch that video because, again, it was medical emergencies in Mexico, Panama, and South Africa. Okay, so any other things you're wondering about the insurance? I will tell you that we did the entire process over WhatsApp. There were a couple of things she needed to ask me, like, now, when it came to proving that I did not have any pre existing conditions, they didn't. I did not have to get a physical. They just asked me, "Do you have any pre-existing conditions?" And I said no, because I don't. They asked me questions like, "When was my last Pap smear? When was my last, doctor's visit?" Blah blah blah. I filled out. Once I decided which policy I wanted to go to based on the quote she gave me, I filled out the form. I scanned that back to her, and I think in a couple of days I was covered. Okay, so getting the policy was not that big of a deal. Now, when it's time to renew, one of the things I'll tell you that I am concerned about or I'm wondering about is, like, the if I switch to another insurer, if I had a condition that, or I needed to have treatment for something that had a waiting period, that all resets. And so, I think it would be in my best interest to continue with Seguros Monterey, but I don't know at this point if I will. I've heard acupuncture. Yeah, I can't read, y'all. I've heard alternative medicine like acupuncture and massage is affordable in Mexico. Have you explored it all? Not acupuncture, but massage and chiropractor. Is that a word? Um, I injured, I think it was this shoulder. Um, Coming back from Kuwait, I tried to help somebody out and picked up a 50-pound suitcase. It might have weighed more than that because I usually don't have trouble with 50-pound suitcases. And when I did it, it felt a little funny. I didn't think anything of it. 3 weeks later, I could only raise my arm to here. And that kind of freaked me out. And so during the next 4 months, I was living in China. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that my situation was getting worse and I was getting less and less mobility with my arm. I was coming to Mexico over the summer, pit stop in Houston. Because I did get a massage in China that loosened it up a little bit, but I didn't want to repeat that experience. So I went to a chiropractor in Houston. The chiropractor explained what the problem was. I had, I can't remember frozen shoulder. Basically, I had injured it and it decided to lock up on me. And so because I had a Groupon, because otherwise I couldn't have afforded the chiropractor in Texas. But I was spending the summer in Mexico. So I was like, I need a chiropractor because I can't be where I can't lift my arm. I have gone to two different chiropractors here in Mexico City. The first one, he is Canadian and is actually the chiropractor for the Mexican national hockey team, I believe. An office visit was 600 pesos, which is about 30 bucks. Um, when I moved back in July, I wanted to move back here because here's something interesting. There are not really chiropractors in China. It's not really a thing. The chiropractors in China wanted the equivalent of like $150 USD to treat me. And that was with insurance. It was actually more with insurance than it was without. So I didn't go to the chiropractor for a whole year. Got back here and was like, I need to go to the chiropractor. Got a recommendation. This woman, I forget where she was trained. Her office visits are 500 pesos. It was 520 pesos for my first visit. So, but every subsequent visit has been 500 pesos, which is about $25 to go to the chiropractor. Massages. I have, because it was during the pandemic, I had someone come into my apartment to do a massage. A 1 hour massage cost me 600 pesos. So what's that, like $35? Um, I don't know that I could get an in-home, and it was a great massage too. I don't know that I could get an in-home massage in the US for that, for an hour for that. I don't think so. So I have found those services to be affordable. Now, if you want to pay the equivalent of $100, $200 US for a massage, you can get that too. But that's not the average price. That's definitely the high end. Um, okay. My copay in the States is $45 just to walk in the door. Here's the thing. Um, most people here have their doctor's WhatsApp number. So most people don't, once you have a relationship with a doctor, if you're not feeling good, you just text the doctor and they'll be like, okay, here's what you need. Go get it from the pharmacy. That to me is like that is a whole new world that I just can't wrap my head around. If you don't have a doctor, so like I could, if I was not feeling well, most of the pharmacies here have a doctor's office right to the side of them. And you can go to that doctor and tell that doctor, this is the medicine I was taking in the US. And then that doctor will write you a little thing. You go next door to the pharmacy and they get it. I think if you pay that doctor, sometimes it's like 50 pesos, $2.50. It's not a lot. So they can examine you, they can prescribe medicine to you, or basically they are your conduit into the pharmacy to get the medication you need. Again, that just blows my mind because I feel like in the US there are so many barriers and things between me and the doctor. You would never have the doctor's number to text them. Let's see what other questions y'all have. Yes, the doctor's personal phone number. It is very acceptable for you to just text the doctor what your symptoms are and they'll tell you. You could come in if you really want to, but it's totally acceptable, which blows my mind. All right, you can't drink the tap water. That is up for debate. I can tell you here in Mexico City, technically the water that the city produces is safe to drink. The problem is getting that water to your apartment because unlike in the US, when you turn on your faucet, that water is being piped in. Here, when I turn on my faucet, that water is coming from a storage tank. So clean water went into the storage tank. How clean is it when it comes out of the storage tank? That's the big question. So here in Mexico City, that's why most people don't drink it. I have a filter that I just pour tap water into this eco filter, and we drink that. Mildly off topic, but does the water in Mexico City cause any stomach bugs issues? I have not had any stomach issues whatsoever here from the water, eating at street vendors. Now, I can't tell you all about produce because you know I don't eat produce. Um, so that's been my experience. My previous landlord, he bought a refrigerator that had like a water dispenser in it, and he was trying to hook up a filter to it. And I said to him, "Well, I've heard you can drink the tap water," and he was like, "No, no, no." So I don't know. That's a hotly debated topic. Okay, it's vastly better. Okay. Um, and finding a doctor here, if you want somebody that speaks English, that's not super difficult. It's generally one of these things you can ask around about. There's also a website, I want to say it's Doctorly, I can't remember, where basically doctors post like, this is where what they do, what their practice. These are the hospitals they generally work at, and they will also post what visits cost. They will post like a general office visit costs so many pesos. I found that refreshing as well because in the American system, you know, part of the reason a lot of us are hesitant to go to the doctors because we don't have any idea what it's going to cost. So I found that refreshing as well. So, um, if y'all don't have any more questions, that's really all I have. I hope it has been helpful to you. If there is something that you want to know that I did not answer, whether you're here now live or you're watching this in the replay, please leave that question because I'll do my best to find out the answer for you. Um, let's see. Uh, but I wish I had more experience with with actually receiving healthcare. But y'all, during the height of the pandemic, I was not trying to go to a hospital. I wasn't trying to go to any kind of medical facility where there might be sick people because I didn't want what they had. But now that we're kind of catching a little bit of a break, I am going to try and squeeze in all of those visits before things, maybe take a turn for the worse in the fall. I don't know. Uh, I don't know how it's going to go. But thank y'all for joining me this evening. And again, if you've got any questions or you think of something, go ahead and ask them. I got here a little late, but here in Mexico City, are there private and public hospitals like in the States? Yes. The hospitals here are color coded. I can't remember the color codes, but but I know like 10-minute walk from here, there is a public hospital, a IMS hospital. And when you look on Google Maps, if it says IMS or something, if there's some big acronyms, and I think, are they blue? Let's see. I think they're blue or green. Let's see what Google Maps tells me. There are private hospitals. Okay, so Google Maps is showing me the M's and it's red. So much for what I know. There are, with the public hospitals, there are also specialized hospitals. Like one day we were out walking in the morning and we came across a hospital, but it wasn't labeled on the map, and there was a line of ladies, and my friend is very bold and forward, and she asked them what they were in line for, and it was basically like gynecological stuff and that sort of thing. But there are private hospitals here, and public, and then there are like TUDOC, TUDOC. That's kind of like a not rapid care. What do you call it? Urgent care. That's kind of like an urgent care place. And then, of course, there are the doctors located in most pharmacies that you can talk to as well. Okay. All right. So I think that's it for us, y'all. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. And again, you're very welcome. And again, y'all check out this video on handling emergencies. I type so slow. I'm sorry. And it's going to be misspelled. I'm sorry, y'all. Watch this video. There's a lot of useful information in that as well. Okay. So until next time, y'all. Bye.